Superintendent, either, I guess I'd like to ask this of you, but maybe if the mayor wants to weigh in as well. Can you speak to the kind of the overall holiday weekend safety plan? And in light of what happened, will there be extra attention paid to downtown or any other particular areas of the city just to make sure things are safe?
So here's what we're doing. We're distributing our focus on violence across the city evenly. We obviously, where we know that there's a greater potential for danger, for violence, we have a more laser-focused initiative when it comes to that. But at the same time, we're making sure across the city as a whole that we have a focus, because it is the 4th of July. I mean, violence could spike up anywhere. And we want to make sure that we have enough resources in these locations to get it done. Now, do we have plans around particular areas? Yes. And those plans are around the areas where we know most likely people will gather. You know, our beaches, the lakefronts, parks, things of that nature. We want to make sure that we keep those locations safe, because you'll see an increased number of people in those locations. But we have resources out everywhere, and it's not just the Chicago Police Department. We've reached out to some of our partners across the city to make sure that we have additional help. We've also reached out to our community members to make sure that they understand that they need to take a part in this and get information to us when they can.
Superintendent, I know you mentioned this wasn't. I'm sorry. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No need to apologize. I just want to add one other thing to everything that Superintendent Stelling said is absolutely right. Strategic deployment throughout the city of Chicago. That includes expanding the hours of our CVI workers. We're going to expand those hours to 3 a.m., and then we have our entire summer safety operations site where all of our agencies are working collectively together to ensure that we keep people safe throughout the city. Please, you had a question for the superintendent?
The question is, was any particular individual targeted at the River North incident?
Wojo, we don't know right now. That's part of the investigation. Clearly, the group, there was some target, some way. This wasn't some random shooting where someone just decided that they were going to shoot at this particular group of people. Obviously, there's a motive there, but we don't know exactly what that motive was. But it is safe to say that this venue was targeted.
And can you give us a little bit of the narrative on the other mass shooting incident? We haven't really talked much about that one.
Well, right now, we've got limited information on that. It looks like that, you just had a group of people, not a very large group of people, who were out, and we had some individuals walk up on foot and fire shots at these individuals. So that's still under investigation also. Thanks, sir.
Hi, Superintendent. Can you speak to the conversations happening right now that this is tied to 2 specific gangs and concerns about retaliation considering that?
Well, I won't speak to, because again, it's still under investigation, but what I can tell you is this. There's coordination. Not only coordination with our local partners here, but also our federal partners when it comes to the possibility of this being some kind of gang conflict, things of that nature. But we're also making sure that anything that we uncover and there's a possibility of retaliation, we would have an idea of where that retaliation could occur, and we would put resources in place to prevent that. Thank you.
Hi, Superintendent.
Hey, how are you, Heather?
With the with the United States House on the verge of approving the reconciliation bill that includes $45 billion more for immigration and customs enforcement, has the Chicago Police Department changed its approach to working with federal agents, now seeing that the federal government is not just targeting those with criminal records, but everyone who is essentially not a citizen? Well,
Heather, that would that you'd have to be a lot more specific with that question when you ask changing our relationship with our federal partners. Right now, our relationship with our federal partners is centered around violent crimes and our response to violent crimes and violent criminal acts. That's how we work with the federal government. We don't work with the federal government when it comes to immigration. We are strictly prohibited from doing that. We don't ask people about their status. And let me just make one thing clear, and this is one of the things that's a little upsetting to me about this idea that the Chicago Police Department is working in immigration enforcement. When we do that, what we're doing is we're stoking fears in those people here who may be undocumented, who are also victims of crime. And they're less likely to call us to report those crimes because they're afraid that we're going to do something that we're not doing. So I just want to be clear to everyone that the Chicago Police Department does not enforce immigration. We do not work with ICE when it comes to immigration enforcement, and we want to make sure that everyone in this city who is a victim of a crime has the opportunity to call us without fear and report that crime so justice can be served.
Thanks, Superintendent. I'm wondering if you have any information on how many gunmen, possibly in the River North shooting last night, what type of weapon or weapons were used, and when there's any arrests at this point.
Well, right now we do know that there's a possibility that there was a rifle used in this. There were 2 different calibers of shell casings recovered. To the number of gunmen, we're not sure. I'm not sure right now. I don't want to get ahead of that investigation because it's still being investigated. They're still pulling down camera footage and going through these things. So until we have more concrete facts, I can't give you, but there were multiple shell casings found at the scene.
Superintendent, can you talk about where specifically the canvassing is happening, since no one involved was from River North? Where exactly are cops focusing their investigations today in the city?
Well, first off, the investigation starts at the scene because it is a crime scene. Inside, outside of locations. Some of our squad cars are part of a crime scene where our officers took people to the hospital and they were bleeding inside of our squad cars. This is the kind of chaos that we deal with on a daily basis and the work that police officers do. But at the same time, as we gather more and more and more information, we will then know where to put those resources. Right now, it's still early in the investigation, so it's hard to say exactly where everything is going to be. So once we get a little deeper in the investigation, talk to more witnesses, talk to the victims, start to get statements, we'll have a better idea of where we're going to deploy people.
Hi, Superintendent. This is also possibly for the mayor, if he would like to comment as well. Alderman Riley is calling for Artis's business license to be revoked. Their license is related to operating a restaurant. They don't have a public place of amusement license or liquor license. And as you mentioned, the space was rented out. Some would say that the owners could have never predicted that this could have happened outside of their establishment. Is it too soon to consider revoking the business license in its entirety, and do you support that?
Well, here's what I'll tell you right now. It's still early. We still need to do a full investigation. However, right now, there is a summary closure. I believe that that's the right thing to do at this very moment, just to ensure that while we're doing this investigation, nothing else happens, right? It's all a part of the investigation. The other part of that, I'll allow the mayor to talk a little bit.
Thank you for that question. What we do know about this business and this establishment, this was a business structure. This was one of those bring your own, if you will, establishment. So, do we have an opportunity to look more strategically around how venues are rented out? Of course, we're, always going to look towards finding ways in which we can, ensure safety in all of our establishments. But I want to be absolutely clear that this was not a club, it was a restaurant. The owners have demonstrated a great deal of thoughtfulness around just their business plan and ideal and its motivation. And, as a body of government, it's always useful for us to figure out ways in which we can innovate, retool, or reconsider our approach to make sure that, we do everything in our power to eliminate these type of incidents from occurring. Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
My question is for Superintendent. In the past, you have mentioned that you guys work with nonprofit organizations over at the neighborhoods to prevent or fight violence. Can you elaborate about what type of coordination are you working on?
A little bit about that earlier with the CVI workers. Look, each one of our district commanders has they're engaging with people in the communities. There are times where when we're in the downtown area with the young people, we have had CVI show up along the beaches. It's important work, but it's also important to have our community members, because you also have community leaders who are out there doing similar work. So it's going to take everybody. So it is a part of the strategy. It's always a part of the plan. When we convene every Wednesday with our ComStat, we look at districts and we see how they're utilizing those resources to make sure that they're in place, and we're all working in lockstep. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to bring our deputy mayor up to talk a little bit more specifically around even some of the community-based organizations. But to the superintendent's point, it's not just policing. It's going to take all of us to ensure that we continue to build on creating safe spaces in communities throughout the city of Chicago. Policing alone is not going to get us there. So I appreciate the question. To provide more support within these communities. But Deputy Mayor Gatewood, you want to talk a little bit more about just the summer safety strategy, particularly around other community-based organizations?
Thank you. Just to add a bit more onto it, both the superintendent and mayor were spot on again. We have begun this work some time ago, but ultimately we just had a conference call yesterday with a lot of our lead CVI organizations in the Chicago Police Department to map out where those deployments will be this weekend, where folks can be beneficial and helpful. Internally in the mayor's office, on the mayor's office of community safety particularly, there are incident response leads who have the responsibility to respond to mass shootings, tender age shootings, and they coordinate those services across multiple agencies. Just yesterday, we attended a peacekeeping graduation with UCAN. I spoke to the chief executive officer of UCAN this morning. While they don't cover the downtown area, they're going to be expanding their resources throughout this entire weekend to provide more support. I also talked to Sam Castro out of INVC, the Institute for Nonviolent Chicago. I've asked him to help coordinate along with Elvis Ortega from our team internally what that response will be with our community violence interrupters throughout the entire city. Again, as the mayor mentioned, those hours are extended, but also the hours are extended with our victim services partners. We also activated a few safe spaces throughout this weekend too. Late night basketball, which will bring in over 100 young folks in each of those locations around the city to create those safe spaces, while also making sure we have the resources necessary with our police department, our fire department, the Office of Emergency Management Communications, so they can continue to do the work that they do, so we can try to help continue to lighten the load on their backs. You will see all of us out throughout the weekend. He's not on camera, but everybody in the world knows Glenn Brooks, so everybody will see all of us out this weekend trying to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep the city safe. Beyond this weekend, we're going to continue our coordination. As I mentioned earlier, the Summer Operations Center, that group meets every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to walk through every issue that is impacting the city, every issue in violence, every large-scale event. How can we respond to that? What additional resources are needed? How do we tweak resources from the day before? So if something happened the day before that we need to adjust our plan to, we use that call as a place to do it. We also have strategy calls daily with the superintendent, the chief of patrol, the commissioner, Annette Nance Holt, and also Frank Velez from OEMC. That is on the government side. On the community-based organization side, each of our agencies works hand in hand with them to make sure, one, we know what time they will be in locations, what we can expect from their coverage, and then we make sure they have points of contact with Director Glenn Brooks, the Director of Violence Prevention and Community Safety, Manuel Whitfield, from our team. So one, we also have those points of contact consistently, so everybody knows who to call when something happens. The superintendent mentioned the CPD and CVI professional understanding. When we first came in as a team, that was in a few districts. It's been expanded to almost every single district in the city of Chicago. So when something happens, there's additional support on the ground to provide resources and victim services to those families, so the Chicago Police Department can continue to do their job of not only providing victim services support to those families, but helping solve those crimes to bring closure to those families and help continue to drive violence down in our city. So I hope that provided some more detail.
Courtney, last question.
Superintendent Snelling, are you able to elaborate a bit on why statistics show that shootings and murders are up in the 18th district, what that may be attributed to, and why crime is down, while crime is down citywide, and what's being done specifically to address maybe some hotspots or areas that are contributing to those numbers that we're seeing in the 18th?
Well, one of the things that I can tell you is that when you look historically at the 18th district, there wasn't a huge number of shootings. So if you had 2 shootings last year and you've got 4 this year, you've got 100% increase. However, that's not making an excuse for any of it. We analyze these things as we go along. We look for conflicts. We look for patterns of practice, or we look for patterns in general. Could be robbery related. Any of those things could be issues. I'm not saying that's exactly what it is, but we do our research on it. We sit with our district commander and everyone in the central business district, and we attack these problems based on putting resources in the right places. So we have to do a little more research because we're halfway through the year to determine what all of those factors are. But we are working very hard to make sure that we keep crime down throughout the city. And we do that, and I have to mention a couple of things. You know, our chief of patrol, John Hine, who works really hard in making sure that the city is safe, showing up to these scenes, showed up there last night. You know, Chief DeVries from Counterterrorism following up with intel. And our chief of detectives, Antoinette City, is following up just in incredible ways with the detective division. The leadership there has just been absolutely great. Glenn Brooks being on the ground. And then our partners up here, Mike Milstein, Deputy Director over Victim Services, overseeing that. You know, Commissioner Holt, you know, just can't say enough about her and her team and how we work together, how they show up to make sure that we're all working together to clear that scene. And Frank Velez, you know, over OEMC, the dispatchers there, without that coordination, this becomes much harder. So the partnership across the board up here has been, you know, absolutely great. The coordination with Deputy Mayor Gary Gatewood, the constant conversations with the mayor. It's across the board, responding to something like this is very important that we have all of those wheels turning. But if I did not mention the initial response by our officers and by fire, I couldn't walk away from here without mentioning them, the boots on the ground, those officers who showed up and witnessed all of this trauma and responded, getting people to hospitals, using their Lee-Mark kits to stop people from bleeding out. It's just great work being done by the men and women of the Chicago Police Department, boots on the ground, just amazing stuff from the fire department. And we're going to continue to do this. And I just believe things are trending in the right direction. Last night was a terrible, terrible, terrible thing that occurred. But we're going to continue to fight to keep those things down.
Superintendent, can I ask you a question just for my colleague Michelle Garrido, who couldn't make it here? Can you address some of the talk on the street that perhaps this was a retaliation shooting, that some of the folks who were shot had been making fun of someone else who was shot and killed on 87th just a couple of days ago?
Well, Craig, I like the way you stole that question. But just real quick right now, I can't confirm or deny that right now. We are continuing to gather facts about this, and the more information we have, because I don't ever want to stand up here and give you information that we can't prove concretely. Right now, everybody's working across the districts, across bureaus, and we're going to make sure that we get to the bottom of this. And as soon as we have some facts that we can hang our hats on, we'll get you that information.
But you're looking into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We look into every possibility that where we can solve a crime. So yes. Okay. Thank you.
Just want to make sure that thank you, Superintendent. Thank you again, Superintendent Snelling, for your leadership, Commissioner Annette Nance-Holt, our Executive Director Velez, Mike and Gary, and thank you both. Just want to remind people again this weekend, I want people to enjoy the city of Chicago. You know, this tragedy that we are working through today, again, this does not define us as a city. This is still the top destination for people around the globe, but I need people to come together as a city to show up for one another in order for us to continue to drive violence down the city of Chicago and to prevent incidences like this from occurring. If you know something, you see something, you got to say something, you got to come forward. Our police department and our fire department has done an exceptional job. They cannot do it alone. It's going to take all of us. I'm counting on you, Chicago. Happy 4th, you all. Thank you.
What's up, man?
Now it's been closed. And until we get to the bottom of this, I mean, we had 18 people shot at this location. There is a summary closure in place, and we're going to continue with our investigation. I mean, right now, we're working with our federal partners. The ATF, our CJIC Center, is doing the investigation on the shell casings. We're working diligently to make sure that we get to the bottom of this.
Superintendent, I guess I'd like to ask this of you, but maybe if the mayor wants to weigh in as well. Can you speak to the kind of the overall holiday weekend safety plan, and in light of what happened, will there be extra attention paid to downtown or any other particular areas of the city just to make sure things are safe?
So here's what we're doing. We're distributing our focus on violence across the city evenly. We obviously, where we know that there's a greater potential for danger, for violence. We have a more laser-focused initiative when it comes to that. But at the same time, we're making sure across the city as a whole that we have a focus, because it is the 4th of July. I mean, violence could spike up anywhere, and we want to make sure that we have enough resources in these locations to get it done. Now, do we have plans around particular areas? Yes. And those plans are around the areas where we know most likely people will gather. You know, our beaches, the lakefronts, parks, things of that nature. We want to make sure that we keep those locations safe, because you'll see an increased number of people in those locations. But we have resources out everywhere, and it's not just the Chicago Police Department. We've reached out to some of our partners across the city to make sure that we have additional help. We've also reached out to our community members to make sure